Hello viewers, it's Cynthia Michael from Screen Reviews, bringing you my 737 podcast. This is my 737 podcast. Like always, I'm going to speak very loudly, very clearly, and very slowly, kick you to understanding. Also, I try to do my best not to reach your heart during this audio podcast recording as well, not to cause any audio feedback as well. And finally, it's under 18. This audio podcast recording will change to adult language. If you're under 18. Now, if you're over 18, that means you get to watch this audio podcast recording. Now, with this and everything else out the way, let's get into the topic. Recently, Daredevil Born Again has wrapped up its second season. I gotta say, it was not bad, but it kind of left some questions. Unanswered, like, where was Luke? Where's Luke all this time? Was he in captivity? Or what's going on with Jessica's powers, etc., etc. But I would say, I feel like, in the first season, it's kind of like the opposite of the first season of, it's kind of like the opposite of the first season, like when Buggy died, Matt tried to distance himself to being Daredevil and whatnot. But basically, once Buggy died, he was just like, in the first season, he was just like, I'm not gonna be no vigilante no more. Basically, I'm done with that whole life. But it just kept on, but he realized in that whole first season of Born Again that yes, Buggy died. I do feel sad that Buggy died and all, but I realized that Daredevil will always be a part of me for good and bad. So basically, in the second season, this is what Fish realized that, being the kingpin is basically, will always be a part of me for good and bad. So basically, it's like, when Matt went through the stuff he went into the first season that caused him not to be Daredevil, then he came back and become Daredevil again. He realized that, Daredevil is a part of me. When it comes to Fish, he realized that, the kingpin will always, like, his kingpin ego, like, Matt's Daredevil ego will always be a part of him, and Fish's kingpin ego will always be a part of him. But I do believe Fish did try to better himself, try to be a better person, Vanessa tried to help him with that, but once Vanessa died, it was a sad, I believe that Vanessa did try to help Fish, Vanessa did try to, did make Kingpin a better person, but that's just my opinion. Vanessa's present. We did see a more emotional, vulnerable side of Fish and whatnot. So basically, I believe that Vanessa did influence over Fish. Did try to make him a better person, but it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that her death kind of undo it and whatnot, and basically drove Fish off the deep end and whatnot. As BB's reporting about the things that Fish was doing in the dark, was trying, her reporting doing her little kingpin sketches was very entertaining throughout this second season. So basically, I really liked the BB. As for her friend Daniel, that fool. So basically, you know how it is when people try to warn somebody that you shouldn't get involved with this dude. This dude is a bad. So you shouldn't get deep involved in, like, throughout this whole second season and the first season, most of the first season and this whole second season, BB kept on telling him don't get involved in fish, because sooner or later, you might have to choose to decide, and that might cost you your lives. And Daniel quickly realized that, and basically he picked the side. He picked the side on what's right, and basically, and he ends up paying for helping BB, not writing BB out to her. To his associates, his coworkers who's working to fish, basically it was just like, I really felt sorry for how Daniel died doing the right thing at the end of the series. As for Fish, the whole relationship between Matt and Fish, because honestly, I feel like Fish could have just, had the opportunity to really, Fish during the first season and the second season, he could have told the truth about Matt being Daredevil to the people all this time, but Matt. Matt had to sacrifice himself for sacrifice him and tell the world that he's Daredevil or not. That was a big shocker, but I felt like Fish could have just easily tell the truth, could have easily just say, hey, hey, Matt Murdock is not who you see, he's Daredevil, but he will have to prove it though. So basically, Fish would have to have proof, had to have proof if Fish did, but Fish didn't, despite all that happened, Fish didn't even, throughout this whole season, in the first season, he didn't even didn't even try to out Matt as Daredevil at all. So basically, it's like, wow. Kind of Fish and Matt have this weird kind of I would say like a kind of weird relationship with each other, in the way they do expect each other in a way, so basically they have this mutual kind of this weird mutual respect towards each other, because honestly, if I have an entity, if I have an entity that I do kind of expect, why would I rat him out? Why would I rat him out? So basically, today I'm a bad guy, he's a good guy, etc. I know his secret identity, but at the same time, I kind of, if I do rat him out, we won't be as kind of close to each other. So basically, Matt and Fish had this weird relationship towards each other. They kind of expect each other, and whatnot, in their own different ways. So basically, Fish could have just had the opportunity throughout this whole second season and the first season to be able that Matt is Daredevil, but he didn't. So basically, out of respect to Matt and whatnot. So basically, Matt really went to the ringer in this second season. His relationship with Paige, with Paige, like, we see her we see how his relationship with Paige is finally evolving throughout the second season, and also it gets you wondering, like, what was her, like, so basically we know that Matt and Kate Page are a couple, but it gets you wondering, like, what is their what is Kate's if Kate's relationship, what type of relationship she had with the Punisher. So basically, seems like during the first season, towards the end of the first season, seemed like Frank was kind of snitching towards Paige, and basically seemed like they was kind of in a relationship with each other and whatnot, and basically Matt was like, what's going on between you and Frank, and and basically Kate kept on. It's kind of, kept on doing that, crashing and whatnot. So basically, if the Punisher does show up again in season 3, or I hope, or in that Punisher special preview movie and whatnot, we finally get some answers, like, hey, what's going. What was going on between King Kate and Frank, and whatnot. As for Jessica, that Robinson dude who came and basically the Robinson dude who was kind of was dipping into the shady side, of business, business partners, other business partners on the crime side, Robinson was just there to, hey, I know that your other partners are basically, are not happy with this dude. When Jessica came back, Mr. Robinson was like, hey, oh, I know what Luke is, and I heard that your powers are not as used to, your powers is not what they used to be. And basically, when Robinson said that Jessica's powers is not what her powers are not used to be, basically maybe once Jessica had her daughter, I believe her powers must have been affected during childbirth and such, and basically must have affected the birth of her child, must have affected her powers and whatnot. As for Luke and what's her name, we don't really have the answer, where was Luke all this time. So basically, during this whole second season, where was Luke? Robinson said, I can tell you what Luke is, and basically, let's assume that. No, it's been a while since I watched Luke Cage and whatnot. So basically, I hope that we will get some answers about, where was Luke this whole time and whatnot. Such as for the new White Tiger, we get to see some White Tiger action in the second season as well. So basically, I like it how it kind of mirrors how the riots, the January riots they're kind of they're kind of making a point about, basically, I believe Fisk does care about the city and whatnot, and also he does make a point that we need to do something about the vigilantes and whatnot. So basically, about how to handle vigilantes and like Daredevil and whatnot. He does make a good point about that. About vigilante superheroes and whatnot, basically, should be accountable for their actions, maybe they should work with the police, kind of like Batman does with Gordon and whatnot. So basically, about vigilantes and vigilante superheroes, go around, basically doing their own thing and whatnot. and basically causing some collateral damage, like should face some consequences for their vigilante justice and whatnot. But I gotta say this whole second season of Daredevil Born Again was alright. So anyway, what do you guys think about the second season of Daredevil Born Again? Good, bad, or just okay, or just nah? Please let me know. Anyway, sign off. The Squeeze Reviews. One.